Drop down over East Africa, and you are looking at a geographic scale that defies simple measurement. You have snow-capped peaks bleeding into the Great Rift Valley, which eventually flattens out into thousands of square miles of savanna. People often equate the word wildlife exclusively with apex predators, the lions, leopards, and multi-ton elephants that dominate the landscape. However, the formal definition is far broader. Wildlife encompasses all untamed organisms living in their natural environment, including the insects, the birds, and uncultivated native plants like wild orchids. Within that biological catalog, rare species act as localized magnets. A mountain gorilla in Bwindi Impenetrable National Park draws international interest precisely because it cannot be found anywhere else on Earth. The attraction extends to the land itself. As this image of the Rift Valley shows, the sheer physical relief, the craters, drops, and climate functions as a primary draw for visitors. This combination of untamed biology and dramatic physical geography forms the foundational asset base for the region's modern economy. To understand the value of that asset, consider the standard model of extraction. Usually, a country harvests a physical commodity like coffee or copper, packs it into crates, and ships it abroad to foreign buyers. East Africa's tourism industry actually reverses this entire physical process. Economists call this the invisible export. Mechanically, the resource never leaves. The geography and biology remain fixed in their original location, perfectly intact. Instead of moving the product to the consumer physically transports themselves and their capital across the globe to the resource. This capital flow transforms conservation from a matter of environmental preference into a structural pillar of Uganda's international trade balance. Because this invisible export is highly fragile, it requires rigid legal boundaries to survive the pressure of human expansion. Protected land is managed through a strict regulatory continuum, as shown in this matrix, ranging from absolute isolation to controlled human use. The highest tier is the national park. Inside this solid boundary, the government enforces a total ban on human settlement and hunting. This level of protection yields environments like Murchison Falls, a major natural asset thriving because of that strict legal isolation. One tier down is the game reserve. These zones permit regulated human activity, such as limited seasonal grazing by local tribes, while still protecting the resident wildlife. The final tier consists of sanctuaries, highly monitored zones designed with the singular purpose of protecting a specific endangered species from extinction. These zones are calculated compromises designed to separate ecological preservation from the needs of human populations. Critics often assume that the revenue generated by these zones remains captured at the top by the state or wealthy lodge owners. That perspective overlooks the multiplier effect, the mechanism by which capital distributes itself throughout the local population. The chain starts the moment a tourist's dollars or euros convert into shillings. Direct service providers, guides, drivers, and vendors capture that initial capital. The capital then reaches the agricultural sector, as lodges buy tons of produce directly from local farmers. This bustling market activity is the downstream result. The demand from the tourism industry heavily subsidizes the local farming economy. Protecting the life of a single elephant triggers a financial chain reaction that sustains the village supply chains surrounding the park. Beyond illegal hunting, the most persistent pressure on this economic model comes from spatial competition for land. This creates the habitat paradox. Observe this boundary line. On one side, a static, legally fixed national park. On the other, human terrain. As the years pass, the human population living adjacent to the park doubles, creating a massive increase in the local demand for land. That growth forces agricultural lines to expand. Farmers push crop lines directly against the park boundary, shrinking the buffer between human and wild spaces. Large mammals eventually run out of room. They cross that legal boundary to find food, infiltrating the newly planted agricultural zones. This image shows the reality of that boundary failure, a multi-ton animal feeding mere feet away from human infrastructure. When an elephant herd consumes a year's worth of crops in a single night, farmers often retaliate by poisoning or killing the animals to protect their only source of income. This conflict represents a direct collision between two competing survival strategies fighting for the same limited acreage. Deliberate habitat destruction through deforestation further clears out the system's primary assets. Poaching adds a final layer of degradation. By removing the animals that attract foreign capital, it effectively decapitates the nation's invisible export. Stabilizing this system requires intervention on multiple levels. The first level is physical enforcement. Heavily armed patrols and strict anti-poaching laws create a hard deterrent against illegal extraction. The second level addresses the community. The state installs physical barriers like fencing, while implementing revenue-sharing policies with the people living on the park borders. Distributing a portion of the park's entrance fees directly to local farmers transforms the perception of wildlife from an agricultural curse into a profitable community blessing. By defending these boundaries while locally distributing the wealth, East Africa transforms a fragile ecological resource into a permanent economic engine.